this movie. What is it that you have to expect? Well, a lot of people have been saying that this is a return to Star Wars. A return to classic Star Wars specifically. And that is a little bit of a misleading statement because it certainly has all the same characters. It has many of the same storylines that are now continued. However, I really can't say that it is a return to classic Star Wars because that was something that you had only in the 70s and 80s, and you will never have that again. It was a one-of-a-kind, unique experience that existed for that generation. However, Disney has marketed this movie specifically claiming every generation needs a story, and this is a Star Wars for this generation, meaning that there are many things that are different, and many things that are the same. Allow me to explain what has made for classic Star Wars and what has defined the original saga underneath the production and oversight of George Lucas. He was a visionary, and his vision for the saga was that of something that was a combination between a myth and an adventure serial. Underneath the myth column, you get something that is, yes, a mythology, but also has aspects of lore, of fairy tales, of legends. That is a space opera. Belongs into that genre. Underneath the idea that it is an ode to adventure tales, it pays respect to many of the old Saturday uh, before. A very simple film with a beginning, middle, and end. A straightforward story. It's just very jubilant, very great on the big screen, very simple. It's just an event on the big screen. And that's what episode 1 was and episode 4 was. So, what about this is still in this new movie? Well, I can say that it is definitely a new myth. It is set within the same mythology. You might say that it's a continuation of the monomyth, especially with its main character. At the same time, even though it's a continuation of the monomyth, I almost feel as if this is still the beginning of a new saga and a new myth set within the same mythology. And there are times when it definitely uses strong mythological motifs, and I'm very happy for that. Ultimately, I believe that is the most important thing to making a Star Wars movie what it is. It is a mythological space opera, and that's what The Force Awakens accomplishes. And it manages to create a myth for this generation. So, therefore, it did achieve its most important goal. What did change? Well, like I said, it is underneath a new visionary in Disney, and therefore it is fulfilling a new vision. Therefore, it doesn't really have this nostalgia for old adventure serials and pulpy novels that I remember in my old dusty library. interesting. It's weird looking at the movie, seeing how it's referencing itself in such a way that things that have gone on in the past. And a lot of it is tying everything together, because if you do believe in the ring theory, you know certain things have to repeat themselves. So a lot of that isn't necessarily nostalgia pandering. It's mostly just making sure everything is thematically tied together, so that you don't just have a complete reboot. That you have some sort of actual continuation of the story and of the grand meta-narrative of the saga. That having been said, whenever they make humor about Episode 4 or Episode 5, it does stick out a little bit. I regret that it was like that. It makes it into something that I don't feel is truly something for this generation. Mainstream acting looks like in a typical modern movie. So, since I think a lot of people were getting tired with the whole adventure serial style acting and all the pulpy and corny and hokiness of it all, I think that's going to be very refreshing for so many people. It still has a ton of plot holes, but they're the type of plot holes that you do expect in Star Wars. So the main thing that they changed was really the acting, and I think that's the thing that people wanted changed the most, so they got that, and that's why a lot of people, I feel, are calling this a return to Star Wars, even though the original classic 70s and 80s Star Wars movies were hokey compared to this. So, and I think Disney definitely had to go in that direction. It had to, because they really have to create their own new thing. So that is good, I think. And it doesn't offend me as someone who loves the hokiness. I think that it is a great new direction to go. And if there's anything that you had to sacrifice from the original saga, it would be that. Now, with regards to whether or not this is a lot of people really like Empire Strikes Back, and it's most commonly cited as people's favorite. Empire Strikes Back is actually one of my least favorites because it's a transition film, and I'm not huge into transition films. I love the opening fanfare, and I love the concluding movie, so I'm really into the bookends. But as Oh, I'm not sure whether I want to call it a transition film or a setup film. But as a transition slash setup film, it probably is the best of any we've seen so far. Better than episode 2, better than episode 5. I really liked it in that regard. But it is quite different from what I expected with this fanfare that I kept on hearing in all of the trailers. So, go in definitely expecting something that's a cross between episode 4 and 5. You're going to be far more engaged in it if you do. That's probably the number one thing I can recommend going into this movie, because I think the other stuff you already know. I think you know that it's going to be very much a fairy tale story with all sorts of fairy tale motifs, which are beautiful, which are definitely in line with Star Wars. I love some of the stuff. I can't tell you what they are. I think all of us knew that it was going to be more of an action movie than an adventure serial, and that the acting was going to be more like regular acting. Just judging off the trailers and with what we know of J.J. Abrams and his style. But the one thing that I think that we might be expecting that we won't be getting is a simple fanfare. That isn't this movie. So, there you go. That's what you have to look forward to. He does notice that. So, those are the three things that you should know going to this film. How it measures up as a myth, how it measures up as an adventure serial and a piece of nostalgia, and how it measures up as a fanfare. So keep all those in mind when you go in and watch it, and they will tell you what to look forward to going forward in the Star Wars movies. Because to me, what's most important about this movie isn't the nostalgia factor and how it brings you back. It's really more about looking towards the future. If anything, I wish it was less nostalgic, because the nostalgia prevented it from being truly its own episode and truly the beginning of a new saga. But that is just my perspective, and it might not affect it at all for you. For you, it might be completely its own episode, and the most natural episode 7 that we could ever have. Well, thank you if you sat all the way through this. I hope that you find my thoughts on this quite good. I hope it encourages you to go see it, and I hope that you really enjoy this even more because of what I've had to say. And I hope I didn't spoil anything for you. Thank you, and may the Force be with you.